The Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi was in New York this week for the United Nations General Assembly meeting, and now the Libyan leader says he spent some of his time in the United States with family members of the victims of the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. He spoke exclusively to CNN's Fareed Zakaria late last night.
I gather from your aides that you have met with the victims of the Lockerbie bombing. Tell me about that.
Yes, I met some of them yesterday. It was a friendly meeting, friendly encounter. And I offered my condolences for the relatives who lost them, for their bereavement. They also expressed their condolences for my daughter who was killed during the American raid in '86.
The 1986 raid.
Yes. It was very sentimental and very touched, the meeting.
So you understand the grief of these people?
Of course. It is a tragedy. It is a catastrophe.
And do you regret any possible role that officials of the Libyan government might have played?
No one would support an action like that or would not be touched and moved by such a tragedy. Whether it is Lockerbie or whether it is the 86 raid against Libya. We are all families of the victims, relatives of the victims, because resorting to violence, because as a result of violence, as a result of terror. Terror in all its forms is a common enemy to all of us.
Lisa Gibson's brother was killed in the Lockerbie bombing. She was one of two family members of victims who met with Muammar Gaddafi in New York this week. Brian Flynn, whose brother was also killed in the bombing, did not meet with Muammar Gaddafi. Lisa, why did you decide to meet with him?
Well, I've actually been working on building a bridge of reconciliation since there was a conviction and the acceptance of responsibility with Libya. I started an NGO that has been building bridges with the Libyan government and looking at ways to build bridges of what we call people-to-people diplomacy, looking at ways to hopefully see positive change happen in that country. And so this was kind of the next step in that process. I first went to Libya on a personal reconciliation trip in January of 2005, and I had hoped to meet with him on that trip. It did not come together, but I did in fact meet with some of his senior cabinet officials and essentially just told them, I said, you know, as a Christian, I needed to come here so I could forgive and begin to see the Libyan people differently than I've seen them for the last 17 years. And so as I've built this relationship with the Libyan government, have been doing some humanitarian education projects there, I thought this would be the next natural step.
Do you believe, Lisa, do you believe that the Libyan government was responsible for killing your brother and the others? 270 people died over Lockerbie?
You know that I've watched the criminal trial. I participated in the process. I saw that there was a lot of evidence, and I believe that there was a conviction. Ultimately, I've always known that there's been some question. And so the posture I've always taken is to say, with the Libyans and even with Megrahi himself, who I wrote a letter of forgiveness to, is to say, only God knows if you're really responsible.
Were you invited to any such meeting, Brian? Did anyone ask you to come over and meet with the Libyan leader?
No, no one invited us to meet with them. And I find that meeting with Muammar Gaddafi condones and legitimizes his regime of terror. And I admire Lisa's adherence to her beliefs, and I in fact think it's probably quite gratifying to find comfort in forgiving people. But for some of us to do that, we would have to turn our backs on the thousands of people whose lives have been ruined by Muammar Gaddafi. And I'm not just talking about my brother or Lisa's brother. I'm talking about the thousands of people that live in Libya today, unfree and under the torture of the Gaddafi regime.
What did he say to you about the Lockerbie, the Pan Am 103 flight today, Lisa? I'm talking about Gaddafi.
You know, we didn't focus as much on the Pan Am 1 discussion. I focused more on sharing with him about the projects I'm doing in Libya to help the Libyan people to find a way to build a bridge of friendship and actually to see lasting change happen in that country. So we didn't have a lot of conversation about that in particular. They've always given me their condolences, but I know consistently that they've always said that they were not responsible.
Do you have a problem with this meeting, Brian, that Lisa had with Gaddafi today?
I don't have a problem with the meeting because I think Lisa thankfully lives in America and not in Libya. Therefore, she's free to say what she wants and to visit with whom she wants. And in fact, I want to express my condolences to Lisa because she and I share a very similar experience. Our brothers were killed at the same time. However, I do think that if you think about the Libyan regime and you think about what they've done, and to go there and not discuss Lockerbie when your brother was killed by that regime, I find that troubling. And I think that if we really cared about the Libyan people, we would in fact do more to undermine Muammar Gaddafi rather than elevate and legitimize him.
Are you concerned, Lisa, as some of your critics are, that you're being used by Libya for propaganda purposes?
Well, I need to make known that I requested the interview and the meeting with Gaddafi, not the other way around. And so my intentions have all along been more about peace and reconciliation building with the country of Libya, which primarily is about the people themselves. I'm serving there. I've done projects there to help kids in Libya with AIDS. I've done training for English teachers. It's all about the people. And he is just one person in that process who makes the decisions that helps to make that possible.
However, Wolf, I would respond to that by saying that in a country that has $60 billion in oil revenue and 20% of the country that is controlled by Gaddafi and 20% of the country lives in abject poverty, I can't see how we're helping the people of Libya by legitimizing and elevating his regime. If we really want to help the children of Libya and help those who are suffering, then I think we have to take a stronger stance against Gaddafi and hold him accountable for what he has done and continues to do. I mean, just this week, Human Rights Watch produced a report when Gaddafi was here trying to pitch a tent, produced a report about the horrendous treatment of Libyan migrants and asylum seekers. It's not as if there's any sort of repentance. This man is an unrepentant murderer. And I think that it's our responsibility, our moral obligation to do something about it.
You want to respond to that, Lisa?
You know, I think that the abuses that he's talking about are legitimate. I've heard the stories. I've had the privilege of going to Libya 3 times and meeting with the people face to face. I've heard their stories. I know what their lives are like. And I actually have done what I think is the most tangible thing I can do is to reach out and find a way to improve their lives. The purpose of my mission, the Peace and Prosperity, is to help the country move forward, to help them become more developed, to help them become more progressive in its foreign policy. My heart is to prevent terrorism in the future by focusing on issues that cause that.
Very quickly, Brian, if you would have met with Gaddafi while he was in New York, give me a sentence or two of what you would have said to him.
I want to know who was behind it besides Megrahi, and I want to know who's going to take responsibility, and I want to know when he's stepping down from his regime.
On that note, we'll leave it. Brian Flynn, Lisa Gibson, thanks to both of you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
President Obama's foreign policy skills, is he up to handling the situations in Iran?